Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're doing okay. Gonna read through the full article here. There's a link in the description. I'll give a trigger warning. About midway through, we're gonna go through some of the suffering that the 2-year-old boy suffered, which led to his death at the hands of his father, this scumbag that you see on the screen here, whose name is Jacob Stephen Wooten, a 29-year-old based in Indiana. He's been found guilty. He actually pled guilty, which is a good thing. He took a plea deal. The article will give us the specific details of that. But he has been sentenced to 52 years in prison for the death of his 2-year-old son, Ryder Wooten. And this death happened in 2018, October. So we will read through the full details. Going to give a trigger warning, as I mentioned. And if you feel down by these types of subjects, if you feel they're bothering you a little bit, if you need a mental health break, then do check out one of the friends of the channel at the end of the day, Bella. She does nice, pleasant live streams on YouTube, typically for about an hour, 2 hours maybe. And just talking about a bit of this, a bit of that. It's a nice, pleasant environment, kind community. If you need a mental health break, then I suggest that, but of course do whatever tickles your fancy, of course. So again, trigger warning about midway through. A judge in Indiana sentenced a 29-year-old father to spend more than half a century behind bars for his role in the death of his 2-year-old son. Circuit Court Judge Angela G. Warner Sims on Friday sentenced this scumbag here, Jacob Stephen Wooten, to 52 years in prison for the slaying of his own son, 2-year-old Ryder Wooten. The scumbag reached a deal with prosecutors and in December pleaded guilty to 1 count of neglect of a dependent, resulting in death, and 1 count of being a habitual offender. In exchange for his plea, prosecutors agreed to dismiss 1 count of murder. So I find that a bit peculiar, a bit odd. He's been sentenced to 52 years in prison, and I guess I'm happy with that, as long as there's no parole. So he, as the article tells us here, he was given the maximum 40 years on the neglect charge, plus an additional 12 years on the habitual offender charge, to be served consecutively. So I'm happy with that. I do find it odd and concerning that the count of murder was dismissed. But I guess regardless, I'm happy with 52 years in prison. He deserves it. And I hope every now and then he gets out in the general population and the other inmates have an opportunity to say hello to him and have a little chat with him about the heinous murder of his 2-year-old son, which we're just going to look into in just a moment. Addressing the court, the scumbag reportedly took responsibility for failing his son. Here's a quote directly from the scumbag. "There is nothing I can say or do. As a father, I failed him. This is a tragedy. Everyone involved has suffered. I miss him dearly." I'm a little bit annoyed by that. I miss him dearly. I mean, is it worth commenting on his statements? Probably not. But my response is, fuck you. Fuck you, you absolute scumbag. You miss him dearly. What the fuck does that even mean? Is anyone supposed to believe that? You tortured the boy. He died of blunt force trauma. You took a plea deal. You pled guilty, but not in the first instance. And regardless of that, you killed your own son, a 2-year-old boy, an innocent child. You're an absolute scumbag. Who gives a fuck what you think or how you feel? Officers with the Elwood Police Department on the afternoon of October the 26th, 2018, responded to a 911 call about an unresponsive toddler at the home where the scumbag lived with his then wife, Alison Stephen, Ryder as well, and two other children. His ex-wife, Alison Stephen, who was reportedly at work when Ryder sustained his fatal injuries, is also facing one count each of murder and neglect of a dependent, resulting in death. So his wife at the time, they're now divorced if I understand, is also facing one count of murder and neglect. One count each of murder, one count of neglect. So I'll give a trigger warning, reminder of the trigger warning. At this point, it's going to go into some details concerning the abuse of the boy, Ryder. Upon arriving at the residence at approximately 4:12 p.m., Elwood police officer Jerry Branson reportedly said that he found the child not breathing and cold to the touch. Officer Branson reportedly performed CPR on the toddler, who was then transported to St. Vincent Mercy Hospital in Elwood, before being transported to Indiana University Health's Riley Hospital for Children in Indianapolis. Ryder reportedly held on for 3 days before he succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced dead on October the 29th, 2018. During interviews with police, the scumbag reportedly told investigators that he had put Ryder in the bathtub and had forgotten about him when checking on the other two children. He reportedly said that he thought the toddler fell and hit his head. So I'm just going to say, just in the last couple of weeks, I've seen, no exaggeration, at least 3 or 4, if not half a dozen, child murders in which the suspects, and in all cases I think it's been the parent, has claimed initially that the child fell in the bathtub. So it's a common excuse, it's a common lie. After finding Ryder unresponsive in the bathtub, the scumbag reportedly claimed that he smacked the boy a few times and bit him on the face to try to get him to wake up. He then waited approximately 20 minutes before calling 911. So I'm just going to comment on that. Who the fuck bites a child on the face? Who the fuck does that? That cannot be a thing. I don't have children, but I can only just... I shouldn't go down this route, but he's guilty. He's pled guilty. So I'm wondering if he literally did bite Ryder on the face as a means of abuse, not in order to try to wake him up or from being unconscious or anything, but as a form of abuse. I can only guess that, yes, that's what he did. Dr. Chris Poulos, the chief physical pathologist for the Marion County Coroner's Office, performed an autopsy and reportedly determined that Ryder's death was a homicide caused by blunt force trauma. Dr. Poulos also reportedly found severe bruising covering Ryder's body and head that was consistent with physical abuse. So I think the chief pathologist is saying Ryder suffered ongoing physical abuse. Prior to the judge handing down her sentence, Assistant District Attorney Jesse Miller reportedly said that the state was seeking the maximum sentence against the scumbag because of the brutal nature of Ryder's death, saying that the case was as bad as it gets. Here's a quote from the Assistant District Attorney. "There were significant bruises. It's one of the worst of the worst." The scumbag's habitual offender status stems from numerous arrests for crimes such as theft, burglary, drug possession, and domestic battery committed in the presence of children. The scumbag and the scumbag's previous wife filed for divorce in 2018, and are no longer married. So I'll just double check. The wife is also, allegedly involved in this. She is facing 1 count each of murder and neglect of a dependent resulting in death. So I would imagine that the scumbag Jacob Stephen Wooten, who's been sentenced to 52 years after agreeing to a guilty plea deal, I would imagine that he would now be in a position to be very open and honest with the investigators and describe the full situation, what happened, their general living habits and such. So I would imagine that he would be in a position to provide a lot of evidence against his ex-wife, Alison Stephen. Legitimate evidence. Describe her involvement. I would presume, sheer speculation on my part, but I would presume that she's guilty, that she was involved, at the very least complicit. I would speculate that because of the charges that are held against her. I think the police know what they're talking about. They would have done an extremely thorough investigation, and they've, again, applause is probably a better word for that, but congratulations to the police officers, the investigators concerned, for gaining a guilty plea. I would imagine that would have involved a lot of valid coercion of the suspect to get them to open up and to describe what happened. So congratulations to the investigators in that regard. Not sure what my point is, but I think I was just saying that I would assume, sheer speculation, that the mother, the ex-wife, I'm not sure if she was the biological mother, I would assume that she is also highly guilty. And I would hope that the investigation proves that, and that she gets sentenced accordingly. So there we go. There's that full article. If you have found this of value, then please do like, comment, subscribe. Check out another video or two. But at the same time, if you feel a little bit depressed after reading through this, watching this, which kind of I am, then go and do something more fun. Give yourself a mental health break. I think I've mentioned at the end of the day, friend of the channel. So she has a very nice channel, Bella. She does nice, pleasant live streams. It's a kind community, but of course, do whatever you need to do just to avoid overly focusing on these subjects. But thank you for listening.